Hello, hello. Hopefully everything is live. Everything is working. We've not had any technical issues for a while. I don't want to curse it when I say that. But let me just have a listen on my phone, see if I can hear it. And then if we are good, we are good. It says this. We have got sound and we've got everything. We're good to go. Tonight, we have a returning guest, an absolutely fantastic stage hypnotist, a UK, United Kingdom hypnotist, which is always good to kind of get the UK massive on there supporting as well. We do kind of get hypnotists from all over the world, but I personally love to hear kind of from the Brits experience as well. Speaking of all over the world, we've got Jason Nobby Morgan, who says we can't hear you. I don't know if I believe you, Jason, because I can hear me on my phone. So you're just being a special person, Jason. So yeah, good to see you. Jeff Benning is here. Hi, guys. And Darren Fraser is here as well. So tonight's guest is the one and only Mr. Jason Simmons. Please make some noise. Bang that keyboard. Make him feel very welcome as he appears on the screen. There he is.
Oh, hey,
Jason, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you? You keeping well?
Yeah, keeping the wolf from the door. It's one of those that it's been a crazy week, and then I've just had a show cancel on me this afternoon, and it's always frustrating when you find that out via Facebook.
All right.
But
for this weekend, or was that?
A couple of weekends away, so it's a bit frustrating when that happens. But it is the nature of the beast sometimes. Tell us about you. How are things with you? It feels like I've not seen you in days.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so we bumped into each other obviously on Friday, very briefly. You sort of had a fleeting visit into London, but yeah, on the whole, I'm in a really good place at the moment. I'm sort of back to pre-COVID, I think, at the minute.
Good, that is good. It's one of those that I've just seen you kind of got a run of shows coming up that I saw you were posting as well, which is great to see. And yeah, it's good that kind of stage hypnosis in the United Kingdom is definitely coming back well, which is good to see. And it's weird. I was having a conversation with another stage hypnotist this afternoon, Ian D, and we were talking about, where's it going to go from here? There's not many guys like us out there doing it at the moment. And so kind of like as we come towards Christmas, where do you think we're going to get some of the old guys coming back out, or what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess people that have given up are probably not going to come back, I think. And I found that because I used to do a lot of discos, and I've been getting a lot of phone calls from an agency that I do quite a bit for. And they're really struggling to get acts at the minute. So I wonder if it's going to be the same across the board, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird one because sometimes, especially as stage hypnotists, what we do is very different. But sometimes I know it's one of the things my bugbear about Christmas bookings is you take the bookings because it's the good money and the good bookings, but a lot of the times it's like, have you got a comedian? No. Have you got a magician? No. Have you got a tribute act? No. What have you got? I've got a stage hypnotist. Yeah, we'll do that. Book that for the Christmas party. And so I love the money of Christmas pre-COVID, but I always hate the Christmas run of shows like Mad Friday. I don't know about you, but I don't work Mad Friday anymore. It's just there's too much alcohol involved. It's not good for me. So yeah, I mean, what's your take? What's your favorite type of show? Kind of, is it the seasonal stuff? Is it the works parties?
I really like I've been doing a lot of the Fringe festivals recently, so I really like doing the Fringe shows because people have, although they're not massive earners at the moment, people are people are genuinely coming to see because they're intrigued about hypnotism and have an interest in seeing that and taking a chance on a show. So I really enjoy performing those.
Yeah. I must admit, I've seen some of the stuff you've been putting up about the Fringe shows you got coming. So tell us about a Fringe show. Is it? I mean, I've been up to the Edinburgh Fringe. I've never performed at the Edinburgh Fringe, but I've been up there. So tell us about what's the format? What makes it slightly different? What are the challenges with a Fringe show?
Well, the challenges are that depending on the Fringe, the audiences can be very low in number, and then the other challenges are that they can be in venues that are not sort of really set up for stage hypnosis or performance of any type, really. So like in between COVID last year, I did a gig in in a marquee that was up the side of a pub. It was a real challenge. You know, it rained halfway through, so we had a river running through the middle of the marquee. It was really bizarre, you know. But yeah, they're really fun to perform, and you know, what if you do get the right sort of audience in, it can be a really good show.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's one of those, if you can do it under those circumstances, you can do it anywhere really. And what a great way to get your name out there. So yeah, that is really cool. So which fringes are you doing at the moment?
So I'm not doing Edinburgh. I'm sort of trying to stick away from that for now. But
yeah,
I've got Morecambe coming up in a couple of weeks.
Nice. I've not been to Morecambe for years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never done this fringe, so I don't know what that's going to be like. Tunbridge Wells Fringe in a couple of weeks, but that's very disorganised. That one. I think this is the second year they've done it.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I'm not sure how that's going to go because they've not really advertised things, and they've only just started booking shows for comics and myself in the last 2 weeks or so. And I think
I don't know if you're finding it, but from my experience, a lot of the traditional venues that were booking stage hypnosis shows and comedy shows, once the pandemic hit and the hospitality staff were sent home on furlough or got other jobs in selling insurance or whatever it was, a lot of good talent left the industry. And now I'm finding that, you know, some of the managers of venues now don't necessarily have the experience that their predecessors had, and that is forming new challenges of people that don't know about the work that we do, our reputations, or how to market a show. Yeah,
well, it's interesting the amount of times you go to a venue and people say, "Oh, I've never seen hypnosis before. I've never seen that," and I don't know. I find that in the UK, the sort of hypnotism really is. It seems to be a lot more stage hypnosis acts, sort of in the Midlands and north up sort of where you are, and down here it's quite sparse, really. I mean, and you still have that resistance in some venues when you approach them, that they say, "Well, I'm not having that," or you know, I don't want you coming in hypnotising my punters and stuff, and not really understanding what it is that you do.
I mean, I think that's it as well. I think, you know, there is still that weird misconception about what we do as stage hypnotists. And I think there's still the throwback to the kind of 70s and 80s when people were doing routines that were, you know, that now just aren't acceptable with the way that the world has moved on with comedy and political correctness. But it seems like a lot of stage hypnosis hasn't necessarily moved on as well. So it's, I think it does need a refresh, maybe a rebrand. I don't know how we would do that. I think it's Sparky waistcoats.
Because I perform comedy as well outside of this, and it's exactly the same in that industry, in so much that people still won't sit in the front row because they think that they're going to get ribbed for sitting there, and people have got that, you know, they've always got that thing of, "Well, don't pick on me," and you know, so it's changing their perceptions about that. That was 20, 30 years ago, and this is now really, but it's getting over that challenge initially.
Yeah. And I suppose you experience it more as a comedian than a stage hypnotist, but there does seem to be this misconception that, you know, the audience is expected to heckle and get involved sometimes. And I know, you know, at me during my pre-talk, I try and shut that down straight away because it's like, you know, we're not going to have that. But how do you find that, and how do you deal with someone that wants to get involved in the show at the beginning?
Well, in a hypnosis show or in a comedy setting, or both?
In both, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny because my comedy act sort of doesn't really invite hecklers really as such, because it's quite low status. So I sort of play under the audience. So I am the butt of the jokes, and the only sort of heckles I get, I do a musical act, and so the only heckles I really get is people joining in with some of the stuff that I sing when they recognise it. But I quite enjoy that, and sort of got lines in there that get around why people are joining in and stuff, you know. But on a stage show, I sort of go in, you know, it's sort of the opposite for me. Try and go in high status and you know, get them to work with you really, rather than you giving a battle people, and you've just got to be direct with them and get rid of them when they come up to mess you around and that.
I did a show at the weekend, and it was quite interesting because there was a guy in the audience who was a bit leery, and I did my usual thing of making an absolute example of him. And then afterwards, someone's come to me and gone, actually, he's a good lad. You know, he's been coming to this bike rally for so many years, and his dad's just passed, and he's actually come on his dad's scooter, and everybody thinks he's lovely. And I'm just stood there thinking, oh, I feel terrible now for just literally tearing this guy a new one.
Yeah.
But I mean, he took it in good spirits, but I think it's as stage hypnotists, I think we have that challenge of we've got to be seen to be an authority, but yet we've still got to kind of be on the level with the audience sometimes. As I think British audiences especially, we don't like people coming out being bigger and better.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to pull them down as such.
You've got to be careful how you judge it, because you can go in too hard sometimes. I mean, I remember a story of a comic going in really hard on someone, and it turned out that the person had Tourettes in the audience. And he really went for them, but unbeknown to him that this person had Tourette's, he just thought it's someone heckling him, dealt with it as he would, and the audience just turned against this comedian, didn't like him whatsoever.
Yeah. It's one of them, and this is not a politically correct thing to say. This is not the professional opinion of Grant Holdings in any way, shape, or form. But I have to say it. Of all the conditions you can have, I think Tourette's is the funniest one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if anyone that suffered from that, it is a terrible condition to suffer from. But sometimes I wish I had it a little bit.
Yeah, but you know, this comic said, I wish someone had said to me beforehand that was in, and that's part of the thing of knowing your audience, isn't it? And knowing what challenges are going to be in there. And you know, I did a comedy gig on Friday, and the headliner turned up and he said, "Oh, what's been going on tonight?" And so even though he hadn't been there, I was able to relate to him that, you know, this has happened. That these people have been sort of picked on, so don't pick on them, and you know, bits like that. So you know, it is sort of knowing that and knowing what's been done as well.
Yeah, and like you said, it's knowing that audience and knowing what's happened in that night can help kind of lay the plans to make it a successful night. There's nothing worse, and you know, you'll have this. I was talking to Ian this afternoon, and he had exactly the same. When you turn up to a venue, and the DJ or somebody else will go, "You're going to struggle to hard work these," and it's in your head then.
Yeah.
It can be a challenge.
So I've been listening to like a lot of sort of positive, you know, motivational speakers and that recently, and I think Les Brown was saying it's like a mind virus. You know, when someone sort of says something like that to you, it starts to fester and eat away. So I try and ignore bits like that now, and you know, just play it as it is, really. You know, take it on board, and then do what you please with it.
Do you know what? You're absolutely spot on about that mindset before you go on stage.
Yeah.
You know, I came to this from a place of like a fear of public speaking. You know, I had an absolute stage fright.
Yeah.
And now how my mind is before I go on stage is so important that I can't have any negative talk in my headspace before then, because if I do, it's going to spill out into the show. I don't know if that's woo-woo or esoteric in any kind of strange way, but if it's not right in here, that translates onto a stage show.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, it's like the saying is like, you know, what you think you become.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I found if you start the day off thinking it's going to be a bad day, then you know, more often than not, it is going to be a bad day. Or you know, if you think I'm unlucky, you're going to be unlucky, because like attracts like, really.
Yeah, I think you've got to assume that everybody's doing the best that they can, including audience members as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, kind of going forward, you had the training this weekend with Justin Trance, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago. Quite an interesting show that was, indeed.
Yeah.
How was that? Tell the people watching your experience of that training. What kind of, did you come away with some golden nuggets?
Yeah, so it was brilliant for me. Like I've got a lot of time for Justin. Really like what he does, and it was good to spend that weekend with him, sort of learning the way that he does things. And it's funny because a lot of the stuff that he sort of taught, I didn't know as in like know that the way that he was doing it, but over the years, especially over lockdown, I put in some sort of limiting beliefs in my mind about what a show is and how it operates and that. And I think I've sort of struggled in a couple of shows recently, So it was good to sort of revivify in my mind what was, you know, what it was. I liked. There was one saying that I sort of it took away from the weekend where he said, I'll do a gig in a phone booth if you promise to call. And I thought, well, you know, I had that mindset before lockdown. And you know, from this weekend, I thought I've definitely got it. So I went out Tuesday to a comedy gig and just thought I'm gonna give it a go and just do it as part, instead of doing the comedy act, do that instead, you know. And,
nice. I think that's a good thing with these trainings as well, because you kind of get a thing of, and I think stage hypnotists are the worst ones for this, where we'll read a book, we'll watch a DVD, we'll watch a couple of YouTube videos, we'll maybe do a course, and then we go, do you know what? We know it all. We're just going to keep going and doing it. And there's the thing of, and there's an element of truth to it, I believe, that you learn it most by actually doing it.
Yeah.
But then comes a time where you kind of go, right, I know it, I know how to do it now, but how do I make it better? How do I polish the stone?
Yeah.
And I think that's when trainings come back in, when you're doing shows successfully, but you want to kind of fine tune it. I mean, you've trained with some absolutely fantastic hypnotists, and you're always continuing to develop that way. So I think that's important. What do you think is, what do you think is the importance that performers get from these workshops?
It's just, I always think that it doesn't matter what you do, but in terms of training, it doesn't have to be related to stage hypnosis, for instance, or anything else that you're doing. But I think if you can just glean even just one piece of information, it's often worth the price of the course itself. I mean, I was telling someone on the weekend, I did a comedy course years ago, and just by chance we went out at lunch. And the guys, we're in the Tesco's or wherever it was buying lunch, and the guy told a joke, made the woman laugh. And when we got outside, he said, always try and make at least one person smile a day, and make that the goal. And that was 10 years ago now, and that's still stuck with me now. So I think, well, that course was 80 quid for that day, and that served me for just in general for life. So
yeah.
And I think these trainings are important, because you're always, even when I've been back with yourself and Chris on several occasions, there's always been something that I've learned. And people will say, people around me say, "Oh, why do you go on these courses? You've been on that one, or you've been there, but you miss the nuances." I think a lot of the time, and it was funny because I went on a training. I think not the last one with Chris, but the one before that with yourself and Chris in September. And we spent the best part of 15 minutes talking about chairs. And when we were on the break, someone that was sort of new to it said, "Why the hell did we spend 15 minutes talking about chairs?" And I said, "You're missing the importance of it. Like, if you get that right, the hypnotizing is easy. That's the show is the easy part. It's all these little tiny bits of information, that you're doing prior to that."
Yeah. Again, conversation this afternoon with another hypnotist, and it was on about that another hypnotist had gone to one of his shows with his iPad and was just writing down the routines that he was doing. And it's interesting because a lot of people, when they look on the outside in, or they're just learning, they kind of go, "Oh, that routine, that routine, that routine, that routine, that routine," and that's not where the magic is.
Yeah.
The magic is in all the little bits in between those routines. The routines, to the layperson, we all pretty much do similar things or based on similar things.
Yeah.
It's those little nuances that make the differences, and those trainings help pick those out.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because on the weekend, Justin sort of went through one of his shows, and he said something happened on the show, and he said, just allow that moment to happen. Like, we as hypnotists, we talk too much. And then I went back and watched a video of mine from a couple of months back, and I thought, he was right. I've ruined that routine by talking too much over that particular act, and didn't allow what was happening on stage to manifest,
to blossom.
Yeah.
This happened for the past couple of shows, a weird thing, and it's happened spontaneously as such. But when you lay them down on the floor, they believe they're stuck to the floor. And it's kind of like, but for it to happen for like 3 shows on the bounce, and you're like, this is not being suggested. I don't know where this is coming from.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if you went back through, if you recorded it and went back through the recordings, whether there is something that you maybe saying differently.
there's definitely something that I've put in there, you know, on some level that's what's being inferred, and they're my favorite type of suggestions, to be fair. And Justin's very good with that, the inferred suggestion.
Yeah.
You know, where it's not a direct thing, but it's inferred, and I think that it looks so much more magical when that happens, like the whole feel this and the whole swallow thing.
Yeah.
I think it works really well.
Yeah.
Dylan says, I learned that on the last course with you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, because I've got sort of a bit of a mentor that I've been seeing for years, as like sort of on the more so was on the therapy side to begin with, but you know, it's just someone I touch base with once a month, and he mentioned that he does like group therapy sessions mainly in adult education centers, and he told me about this experience where this woman came up afterwards, and she said when you were doing that guided meditation there, she said, I saw my father passed away years ago, saw him. He said, when I listen back to the recording, I say further and further down, but he was like farther and farther down, and he said, I wonder whether it was at that point where she, you know, realized that.
And it's those kind of tiny, minute suggestions. Jeff Benning says it could be a gesture too, possibly so.
Yeah. I mean, I try and use a few in my pre-talk, and it comes from this guy Tim Gratwick, his name is, and he mentions like I say stuff like be linking. You know, you can be linking that feeling to. So instead of saying blinking, I'm saying be linking, but to them it sounds like unlinking. And I might say you'll get a wonderful hand uplifting experience, and I just watch to see whether their hand rises on that. You know, and then I wonder whether they're picking that suggestion. And, you know, stuff.
Yeah, is it Tad James's book, The Sleight of Mouth?
Yeah,
which is a great book about those kind of ambiguous language patterns, which I think are absolutely amazing. And again, the subtlety of them is what makes them work so well. Yeah, very much.
I really like using them, because you know, you can sort of get a gauge whether someone's going with what it is that you're doing on stage then, and you know, like I say slipping as in like lips, and jaw relaxing, like instead of your jaw, I say jaw relaxing. Like,
yeah,
you know,
nice.
Just watch for those bits, but that's all come from this, you know, from Tim.
Yeah, and I think as much as we can put out there without it being a direct suggestion, there is less of a challenge to that direct suggestion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that's sort of that Ericksonian sort of conversational style, isn't it? Really, which is you know, the indirect suggestions, really.
Which is great if you're a stage hypnotist. I know a lot of hypnotherapists trying to be Ericksonian on stage, and I think you've got to have the direct and then bring the indirect in.
Yeah.
No one wants to see a demonstration of hypnotherapeutic matters on stage. I think you've got to be the entertainer first, and then the hypnotist.
Yeah, and people often forget that, don't they? I mean, you can see some sort of almost, they become like a lecture as opposed to being a show. So yeah,
So I mean, you talk about your stand-up comedy. How well do you think that has helped you in your stage hypnosis career?
Yeah, I think it all helps really. I mean, it's definitely given me the confidence and presence to be able to sort of manage a room and be able to perform in front of people. And it does give you that, you know, that extra edge in terms of when it comes to writing material and you know, like it trying to make bits funny within your actual stage show as well.
Do you have a process for that? I was working with a comedian a couple of weeks ago in London, and it was interesting to see his format. It was a corporate, and it was quite funny because he's quite a blue comedian.
Yeah.
Are they still called blue comedians?
Yeah, they're still blue comedians.
Yeah, I mean, he's not like a working men's club blue. It's a chap called, you probably heard of him, Gary Delaney. Really funny guy.
Well, yeah. Oh, I don't know. Yeah. I know his act very well. Yeah.
For me, one of the funniest guys ever. But to see his process before the show of how he was trying to tailor his material to the audience, literally like going on their corporate website, finding out information about the business, and then tweaking things and making it work. Yeah. Do you have a process when it comes to writing comedy, not just for the stage, but in general?
Yeah, so I sort of tend to, you pick a subject, and then I'll just it's just write really, and continuing to write, and then refining it. I mean, I was listening to Ed Sheeran on the radio the other week, and he sort of summed it up really well. Someone said, how do you write hit song after hit song? And he said, well, it's like when you first start writing, you turn the tap on and nothing comes out, and then after a bit of time, you might get a dirty water come out, and then the more you sort of continue to write, the more clear the water becomes, and the less sort of sediment that's in that water. I thought, well, that sort of defines the writing process. Really, it is about editing, and it could be one word, one phrase that you might say differently. I mean, I used to do a joke about, I still do a joke rather about. It's a musical joke. I play a song. I don't know why I came here tonight, and then I say it's dedicated to my nan. I used to say she's just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it went horribly. And then someone said to me, "Oh, someone in this room may be suffering with that, or know someone suffering with that. So why don't you change that word to she's forgetful?" And I changed it, and it completely changed the joke. Just one line.
Yeah.
Just sort of softened it enough, and then you try and figure tag-ons that you can add on to your current jokes and that, and just build it from there. Really,
I think that's why people see some of the routines we do as stage hypnotists. I'm just trying to give you an example. The horse race. It's not what I do anymore, but the horse race routine, very popular routine that a lot of hypnotists do. But the weird thing is, the main foundation of that as a skit is one thing, but over years of doing it as performers, we find the little bits of magic in there and tweak it and make it our own. The questions we ask them, the responses that we get. I think it is about those repetitions.
Yeah, and I mean, someone said to me years back, always try and have a local reference because it cuts double. So what I tend to do, more so on a comedy gig than anything, is I'll have a walk around the venue. If I get time, I might sort of research the area to see what's going on in the local paper and things like that, or find out what the rival town is next to it. So when I do that one, I've got a joke there. Like I did this gig in Dartford the other week, and they didn't know what a circle was, so we're already one step ahead of them. And it's just a silly line, but because it's the next town, they go, oh, they're not as clever as us. And
exactly a great use for the extra finger. Do you know what I mean? You got 11 fingers, or you from Leeds, or anything like that. Who's this? Oh, Richard Cole is here. Better late than never, Richard. Hey friends, I was running late. What have I missed? Richard, how's the house and everything? The last time Richard was on, there was a hurricane or a typhoon or something like that, and a tree came down on his house, which is crazy. But that's Canada for you. So going back to the comedy, I think it's really important. I've just been looking at an improv course that's local to me, a comedy club near Leeds, actually. How important do you think it is for stage hypnotists to actually spend time and learn comedy writing or comedy improv?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it helps anyway. I think everything you sort of do helps, and I've done courses for all different things over the years, and read books and watched videos and watched other comedians, and I think it can only help you to develop as a rounded performer. So I even watched like magic and circus things like that. I think the minute you think that you've got everything, you might as well give up, because you've stopped learning, then you stop developing as a performer.
Yeah, and it's weird because I don't know about you, like audiences are evolving and changing constantly. And I think audiences now coming out of the pandemic are very different now. I'm finding some audiences can be more of a challenge. Their attention span is less than what it was, whether it's because they've been used to watching stuff on Netflix or YouTube or TikTok. But audiences are constantly evolving. So the way our suggestions with them has to change as well.
Yeah, I guess people have sort of been conditioned to being indoors quite a bit recently. So coming back out again, it's sort of a relearning how to behave as an audience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, because we were overloaded with so much information and entertainment now, people are they're becoming a bit more savvy. So you do have to try and be a bit smarter about what you're doing, really, and try and bring the same thing across, but in a way that's going to be exciting and
Yeah. With comedy, there's a lots of kind of headlines at the moment, or over the last couple of years as well, about kind of comedians being cancelled and comedy evolving. Do you think that's going to impact stage hypnosis? And how do you think that political correctness in stage hypnosis will affect it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it already has, hasn't it, to a degree? If you think of some of the routines that people used to perform, and and even the way that, I mean, we were talking about this over the weekend about putting, when you get women come on stage that have got quite short dresses and things like that, being respectful of them, and Justin said there was something that he did, and he said I wouldn't do that anymore. And you think, well, that was only 10 years ago, that video, and you're already sort of calibrating in your mind what's going to negatively impact, well, not only your show, but could impact your career as well.
Exactly, and especially with phones being the way that they are now, and people being, whether it them being too sensitive or just more kind of awakened to these things, I do think we do have kind of that responsibility to, I think, for stage hypnosis to move into the modern times, we have to move into the modern times, sexist, all of that type of stuff. We do need to kind of evolve the comedy in it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there probably will still be a market for it, but you're going to niche down your audience then, aren't you? It's like, Roy Chubby Brown is still performing and still quite successful in some parts of the country, but if would he be on TV now, or would he be performing in every city or town in the country? Probably not.
No.
But I think I've got some friends that are comics that are what you would probably term as right wing, doing very well, but would you put them in a Labour gig? Probably not. I don't think they do too well.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Especially the political side of things. It's always fun. There's a show in Sheffield, South Yorkshire, where you got to be really careful where you take your kind of gags with them, because they take it quite seriously.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, even when you're on, when I've done comedy gigs in the past, even if you smile at the wrong point in something, I've had someone come up to me afterwards and said, "Oh, I didn't like the fact that you did that." And I said, "Well, I think it was a question I asked someone, but she said you did it with a grin on your face," and I said it was, it's a comedy show. Let's not take it too seriously. But yeah, so you do find yourself calibrating what you do to the audience, and it's I mean, even as a comic, I've had the complete opposite to that. I remember doing a gig in sort of a little small town outside of Oxford, and a guy coming up to us in the break and saying, you can be more racist, and I said, look, it's just 2015, and there's that doesn't exist as a comedy act anymore,
No.
No. But yeah, if it's not part of who you are, you're not gonna do, you're definitely not gonna perform that way anyway.
Yeah. Dylan's got a great question. He says, "Do you think street hypnosis would change also?"
Well, I mean, in the UK, it's a bit of a touchy subject, isn't it? Really. But I think if you're going to perform it and you can, I don't think it's going to change massively. I think people are quite, when I have done it in the past, people are quite open to to trying it, and so I think,
excuse me. I think it's interesting when we look at the future of stage hypnosis. My belief system, which kind of just makes I can say anything now because it's just my belief system, is we do have a lot of people that are sensitive, and quite rightly so. Last week we had Zellers on, and somebody got offended by something in his show and threw some wild accusations at him. And I think that's the danger we have as professional hypnotists, both on stage and especially on the street stuff.
Yeah.
Because if something goes slightly wrong, it can be blown out of proportion very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, if you're very experienced, very knowledgeable stage hypnotist, you know, you can deal with abreactions and here's the thing, deal with how things are going to look down a camera phone
Yeah.
versus how they actually are, because they can be two very different things. And so it's just on a stage, to one extent, you've got control over the view the audience has. So you know that your hands can be seen and everything is safe. When you're in the street, there's less control over that environment. And the last thing we as performers need is, again, when you mentioned about the lady, when you said further and she heard father,
Yeah.
you don't want a suggestion to be triggering and something else happen. And so I'm not against street hypnosis, even though it's not a thing in the UK. I'm a big fan of impromptu demonstrations of hypnosis. But we've just got to be we've got to be responsible, I think is the right answer.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely right about you know, you're saying about you got to worry about how it's going to look. I mean, I was telling someone on the weekend a few years back, I wanted to learn how to become like a performance pickpocket. And so, I mean, looking back now, it was completely bonkers, really. So I spent the day with this guy, and then the second day we went to do more training. And he said, well, we're just going to go out into the street and we're going to do it. And, you know, under the guise of it being magic as well. And we went to this group of Italians, and, you know, he said, this is your chance, like, do it. And I obviously got caught by one of these Italian blokes, and I thought I was going to get my head kicked in. Like, so, you know, street hypnosis, as aside from that, you know, you've got to be careful what you're, you know, what you're getting yourself into, really.
That must be. I love experiences. I love pushing my body to the point where my mind is going absolutely not, but then going through it. The thought of pickpocketing complete strangers just sounds terrifying.
Yeah, it was pretty nerve-wracking, but, you know, so, I mean, he managed to diffuse the situation, the person that I was with, but it was worrying. And then he was like, well, we're just going, we're going to keep going and doing it. And then, you know, eventually you sort of, it's about confidence, really. So it was the confidence to pull it off. And most people were pretty thingy, but then there is that worry. I heard a story about a magician doing a routine with a borrowed ring, and the ring apparently never appeared again. And you know, this guy then so this is at a wedding, and now the whole party of the wedding are against this magician, saying that you've stolen this, you know, ring of X amount of value and that. So we have got, like you say, you've got to have a responsibility as a performer, that what you're going to do.
And when that crowd gets involved, it evolves into something else. I was talking with a hypnotist who got into a situation, and he was completely right. But when they got there, they'd not sold the tickets that they thought they were going to sell. It was for a charity, and the organizer had to pay the hypnotist out of their own money. And then somebody overheard this and then was having a go at the hypnotist, because this is for a children's charity. How can you do that? And then that grew into something then. And I think, you know, sometimes it's that mob mentality is a dangerous thing.
Yeah, yes, it can be quite dangerous, and having to try and diffuse those situations is, you know, can be equally as challenging, can't it? Sometimes.
Yeah. But it's what we love about performing.
Yeah, well, that's it. You've got to take the rough with the smooth, haven't you? And I think if you don't appreciate the bad gigs and learn from them, or the bad times, then you're never going to appreciate the good times.
Yeah, and it's one of those, I think, weirdly, you know, we're quite lucky in one sense that it's one of the most randomest jobs ever. You know, one night you can be on a massive stage, you know, and you're like king of the world, and then the next night you're in a, you know, a back room somewhere doing, you know, something else. It's just, there's such a broad spectrum, but it's never the same. Whereas like a comedian, even if the audience doesn't like them, a comedian can still just rattle through those jokes. A magician can rattle through the tricks. A singer can just sing the songs.
Yeah.
But we're reliant on having that rapport with the audience. Speaking of which, do you have any tips or tricks for anybody watching on how to build rapport with that audience?
I think you've just got to. I always try and just treat people how I want to be treated, and I think if you give your audience the respect that you expect as a performer, then most often they tend to reciprocate that with you. You know, I've not had any where they've completely. I think because most people when they come out, they've paid for a ticket to be there, and they actually want to be there and they want to be entertained. That was what someone said to me many years ago as a comic. They don't want you to be bad tonight. So you know they're generally on your side. You're always going to get one or two that are there to either disprove what you're doing or to mess around and try and derail your show. And those ones you have to deal with in a polite way. And usually, you know, if you are sort of quite polite about it, the audience, even if you don't handle it that well, the audience are generally on your side because they're not only ruining your night, they're also ruining their night as well.
Yeah. And I think it's a great point you made there about people buying tickets to go to that event. You know, they're committed to it, which I think we've all done pub shows and we all swear we'll never do them again. But I think that's why they can be more of a challenging show, because you've got people that were going to be there regardless and you're interfering in their night. So I do believe stage hypnosis, you know, needs to be, you know, an event rather than background entertainment.
Yeah, and it's the same for comedy. I mean, the amount of times I've gone to, because I used to book gigs for comedy and would approach venues and they would go, "Oh, we'll just put you on and let people mill in," and you go, "Look, it doesn't work like that." So it is down to you as the performer to sort of set your stall. I mean, to a degree, because I always try and say to them, "Look, it's going to be far better for you and for me if this is the environment that you've set up." Because I had one, it was a comedy gig, and the guy said, "Oh, we'll just have, you know, we have bands on every month. We'll just let people mill in from the back and we'll charge a couple of quid a ticket." And I said, comedy and music are completely different. They don't, you know, music, you can have it on and not really be listening to it. And it doesn't matter. But comedy, you need that attention. And particularly with stage hypnosis, you do need that attention and participation from your audience. Otherwise, there's no show.
Absolutely. And it is about, like you said then, it's about setting that stage, setting that environment, setting all the different variables in that room. You want to make sure they're all working in your favor rather than working against you. I'm more of a diva now than what I ever used to be, just because I used to be dead laid back. And you kind of go, "Oh, I don't think that's going to work, you know, and that shouldn't do that. But and never mind, we'll just go with it." And then afterwards, you're like, "Why didn't you just put your foot down?" Because you've made it harder for yourself rather than, you know, just by being the nice guy.
Yeah, and I think that when you do that as well, you run the risk of it impacting negatively on you then, because I think it was either yourself or Chris that said it to me that when someone books a singer, if the singer's bad, they go, "Oh, that was a bad singer. We won't have that singer again." But they'll still have music. But if you go in and it's a bad hypnosis show, then they'll go, "I'm not having hypnosis. We had hypnosis once, never worked. We're not doing it again."
We had the world's fastest, the world's quickest, the UK's #1. We had this person and it didn't work, so it doesn't work. And it's one of the things I always try and push is the fact of the best thing for stage hypnosis in any country in the world is more good stage hypnotists, because then people see it as a actual viable form of entertainment. We have tribute nights on, we have rock nights on, we have comedy nights on, we have, you know, ABBA nights on, and we have hypnotist nights on, and we have a psychic night on. It's an extra form of entertainment. At the moment, most people go, "Oh, hypnotist. Oh, I don't think we've had one of them here. We had a psychic once that worked really well. And so it's just, I think it's educating people that it is actually one of the funniest forms of entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah, and it involves them, their friends, their family, their colleagues, and and that's the beauty of a good hypnosis show, is that it has all of that, but it is getting past that barrier with some venues, and making them realise that there is. And I think, like you're 100% right, that the only way that is going to develop is by having more like well trained, and that's why I quite liked what you guys are doing with the Masters of Trance. Yeah, I've got my badges on the shelf over there, but doing with that, is sort of setting a standard really of what a performer should look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Jeff Bennick said there, we absolutely need more great shows. Yes, Jeff is a fantastic performer as well in the Netherlands, and I think I'm going to pop over and see him in a couple of weeks' time, just because it's an excuse to go over to the Netherlands. Yeah, great guy. So it was a great question, and I completely forgot what I was going to ask you. Where were we? But yeah. So where do you see it going with the likes of TikTok and stuff? I had a resurgence of TikTok from the show the other night, and it's almost like TikTok knew that I'd not put up any videos for a while, and then one of the videos has had like 60,000 views in like 48 hours, and you kind of think it's just bizarre because it's not a particularly brilliant clip, but it just seems to have hit those chords. Do you think the likes of TikTok, like 30-second clips of hypnosis, is good for stage hypnosis or not?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I'm a bit of a technical dinosaur at the minute, in terms of like I've only just in the last few weeks started getting back onto doing stuff on YouTube, and even on the Facebook, managing the page and stuff, but because it has been brought home to me how important that that social media is in your development as a performer. Really, it's I did a gig a few weeks back, and the kid came up to me after the show, and he said, "Oh, what's your Instagram profile and what's your TikTok?" And I went, I've got Instagram, I haven't got TikTok." And he said, "Oh, you should definitely be on it. Like, all the kids are on that." And I thought, well, there's one person I've missed that,
Yeah.
So it's important. I think it's good for any advertisement is good for hypnosis, really.
Yeah, when you look at comedians like, is it Paul Smith?
Yeah.
I think like TikTok helped him blow up.
Has made a load, and I've got friends that have done different things over the years with social media. So I had a friend who was quite big when Vine was a thing. Had a 6-second video clips. He was the skills guy. I got skills. What are you going to do about it? And silly videos, but made a massive sort of fortune from doing that, and as a big following even to this day. And Vine's been off the off the internet for years now. Yeah,
that was my question. I mean, you've done training with Richard Barker over here as well, who is the marketing guy. As a stage performer, do you do the back of the room? Do you do the after show sales?
Yeah, I'd like to say I do. I mean, I recorded a load of like MP3s, and they're on my website. But what I've tended to do recently is just to say to people, if you're interested in them, and I've been trying to sort of use it as an opt-in, really. Tonight's show interesting. Some of you in the audience might be, struggling with this or with that. I've got MP3s that can help you. Just send me, you shoot me an email, and then I add them onto like my MailChimp and sort of take it from there, really.
Yeah. Again, that list building is so important.
Yeah, because as someone said to me, as long as you've got control of what you do, then in terms of like the content you're putting out, then it's that's the key, really.
There we go. Dylan Lovegrove says, "You guys have inspired me to attempt TikTok." Dylan, you'd be brilliant on TikTok. You're young, you're slim, you would do fantastic. It's a great. Weirdly, YouTube's a beast in and of itself. It's a different thing, but TikTok is for organic reach and genuine inquiries, TikTok's really good. From that one video, I think I had 4 solid leads come in from that one video, and 30 seconds long. So Dylan, if you go on TikTok, I'll follow you. But we want to see some crazy dances, Dylan. One of the things that is great about TikTok is the AI helps you find your audience, or helps your audience find you. So if someone's interested in hypnosis, it will show hypnosis videos to that person. They've got a great psychological profile of their users, whereas most of the other platforms, you've got to fight to get them.
Yeah, because I think I was watching something a few weeks back about sort of Facebook's algorithms and how they've changed that. I think something to do with the Facebook pixel, which is if someone's looking at your video from outside of Facebook, they can't. I think it was something to do with iPhone or Apple.
It's the new iPhones.
Yeah,
they can't track or monitor it the way that it used to be able to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I suppose that's another side as well. You know, it's the business side of shows. It is the MailChimps, your Facebook pixels, your social media strategy, all of that stuff that most of us, you know, when we start out, you know, they don't tell us about these things. You just you do your training, and you're told you're going to earn thousands and thousands of dollars, and you're going to be revered like the next Michael Bublé with the power of the mind, and you sit there and nothing happens, which can be soul destroying.
Yeah, well, that's it. I suppose it's like you know, it's like screaming in space. Like, if you know, not being on social media, or not being that, and it's only something I've sort of realised in the last couple of years, is that, you know, not being that active on social media is or in terms of having a good marketing plan behind you is like screaming in space. No one, you could have the best product in the world, best show in the world, and no one's going to see that because they don't know it's there.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the issues we also have in this community, is we do have some people that are great hypnotists that don't perform, but they are on their keyboards all the time, correcting us when we do stuff wrong.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I always, you know, I always try and carry the adage of, like, if you've not got nothing nice to say, then don't, you know, don't say it. Or if you've not got nothing, even haven't got anything constructive to say, then don't, you know, don't do it. And generally, I don't try and give advice unless someone asks for it, because, you know. But I'm willing to take advice if it's
feedback, and sometimes it's about qualified advice. I know in the forums sometimes it can be a bit, you know, you can have someone with maybe less real world experience trying to give you advice, which sometimes you think, I understand what you're saying, but no.
Yeah, and it's, you know, usually that comes, and that sometimes that comes from audience members as well. Like after shows, I don't know whether they think they're trying to be helpful, or whether they're sort of punching down because they're, you know, they're not coming from a place of jealousy, but just because you're sort of doing well. And I read something the other day, and it said it takes 16 positive comments to delete one negative comment. You know, so I am a big believer in trying to be positive with everything.
Yeah, and it's, you know what, it's one of those things, especially doing what we do, because after challenging shows, it can be very much a mental game. If you put in good out, then good's going to come back in for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, that's the one of the things that was great and also bad about being a performer, is that there are these immense highs, and then there are these massive lows, and typically they follow one after the other. Like I always think, you know, you become a little bit complacent when you start thinking, oh, I've got this, I'm doing well, and then because something will quite quickly come along and pull the rug out from under your feet and go, hang on, like, don't get too comfortable.
Absolutely. And you touched on the point there, and it's, as performers, we do have that incredible high and that incredible crash after it as well from shows. So it can be it's always interesting as I become more self-aware as I get older, to see how that affects me. You know, the validation I seek from others, which is what I think makes me a good performer. also sometimes can cause me challenges.
Yeah, and there's a good rule that I try to follow when I remember it. There was, say, call it Millicans law. You've probably heard of it. So Sarah Millican has a rule that if she has, whether it's a good gig or a bad gig, she will only celebrate or dwell on it until 11 o'clock, like 11 a.m. the next morning. So that way, like you know, 11 o'clock, you go, oh look, I can't be mad about that gig anymore because it's 11 now. Or I can't be. Yeah, so you sort of even out the the negativity and the positivity.
Absolutely. So, Jason, I'm going to put up a quick link to your website. That should bring up a link in the comment section, so people can find you. If you're on Facebook, then you can click on that link there, and that'll take you to YouTube. Please do subscribe, watch all the videos, get my watch time up.
You'll get like 4,000 hours, is it? It's that thing.
Weirdly, I mean, it's a weird thing, YouTube. I mean, it's such a thing to aim for. I mean, it's not for that, but I also know that, you know, it's hypnotists don't like subscribing to other hypnotists, which is completely fine. But I think we've got quite a lot of stage hypnotists delivering some real valuable information. And thank you very much for your time tonight as well, for sharing your stuff as well. It's been absolutely fantastic once again.
I always like, you know, I loved coming on the last time, and that was a couple of years ago now. So I feel like even as a stage performer, you know, things have moved on massively for myself, and you know, and just in terms of the training and stuff that I've done as well over the last couple of years. And what you're doing is a wonderful thing, really. I think it's brilliant. I mean, funny enough, because you used to ask the 2 books and you don't anymore.
Oh, well, yeah. Go on. If you've got a book, there we go.
Off the back of your lives, I got this one by Chris Stokes, which is a brilliant book.
Fantastic book.
Pretty honest, and you know, the UK stage hypnotist. I thought this was a great read. And then I think Terry Stokes' one, My Way. I mean,
brilliant book as well.
Another great book. You're looking at sort of developing your own material, and then finally that one as well, Rich Scoozy's one. So since you've been doing live, so there are 3 books that I've thoroughly enjoyed reading, and I've got all the way through to the end of those.
And those are probably like in my kind of top books for performers as well, because what's great about them is you can tell that all of those people that wrote those books are performing hypnotists. They're not going for the technical academic side of things. And this, you can tell they've been in the trenches and they've done their stuff as well. So yeah, Chris Stokes' Strange book is an absolute must. In fact, all of them are absolute musts as well.
Yeah, and they're really, I mean, I'd like to say all three of those have been really, really good books to read and learn from. But in particular, I really like Terry Stokes' one, just because the material, the way he generates material, and there's some really interesting ideas there. If you're sort of struggling to, find a bit of a unique way of doing something, it's definitely worth a read just for that alone.
Yeah. And Rich Guzzi's stuff is absolutely amazing. I know we've had discussions with Rich about maybe him popping over at some point and doing something, which I think would be absolutely fantastic, because Rich is doing, I think it's 300 shows a year. The guy is a machine when it comes to stage hypnosis.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's the other thing. You guys are building a real community of, it's a really, really positive, or on the whole, it's a positive community of different, people that have got a like-minded outlook on stage hypnosis, and that's why I think it's brilliant. I mean, I think it's some on the weekend, the amount of different people. I said to someone on Saturday, funny enough, like, we've probably trained with some of the best people in our field that are alive today over the last 5 or 6 years. I think of all the trainings I've been on, and I think each and every one of them, there's been something like that that's been worth that course.
I think we're really lucky that this generation of hypnotists is not the same as before.
Yeah,
it used to be very dog eat dog. I'm going to do it my way and sort everybody else. Now there does seem to be like you said, there's a real good feel to the collective of people sharing knowledge. And that's good, because it means we're not reinventing the wheel. I personally believe stage hypnosis stagnated a little bit. It's still fantastic, but I believe it's stuck a little bit because everyone's doing their own thing and reinventing their own wheel. Hypnotherapy, they're always tweaking, fine-tuning, doing a talk about it, selling the protocol and the, you know, all the different things, and someone else takes that and then merges it with something else and creates something else. And that's why hypnotherapy has evolved as much as it has. And I think stage hypnosis, performance hypnosis, we have to do the same. Get in all those good people to share that knowledge, so that, you know, our generation of stage hypnotists go on to be, you know, even better.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, a lot of the guys that I've sort of learned from, you know, they're standing on the shoulders of the giants of their time, and
yeah,
you know, and then you think that they've added their own, like you said, they've added their own bits into that melting pot, and it becomes it's something completely different, really.
Yeah. So yes, just come up with Dave Rawson's book. Dave Rawson's book is also another great
I've not read
UK
that one yet. It's that I'll have to have a look at that then. So I'll dig that out, because I've watched Dave a couple of times actually, and you know, I really like his act. So I'll definitely check that one out as well.
Yeah, absolutely, fantastic. Well, Jason, thank you once again for joining us. Hopefully, we'll have you back on again soon.
Yeah, no, I'd love to come back on.
When you do your TV show or whatever it is that comes next.
Yeah,
it will be interesting if it does make its way back onto telly again. I don't know whether I think stage hypnosis on TV does it well, but it can't be bad.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, you know, how it comes back. I mean, they've had a few shows, haven't they, over the last few years? And
yeah, there's always some pilot somewhere doing a pilot show. So fantastic, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Please do the applause and show some love in the comment section. Maybe some fire emojis, some heart emojis, whatever emoji you want to put for Jason. Do check out his social media as well. And thank you for joining us once again for Grant Talks Funny Bits. Don't forget, subscribe to that YouTube channel. And yes, from me and from Jason, take care, good night, and God bless.
Thanks for having us. Have a good night. Thanks.
Cheers. See you later.
Bye.